If you're dealing with a narcissist, the first thing you need to realize is that they are not interacting with you in the same way that you are engaging with them. You assume that relationships are based on mutual respect, give and take, and shared understanding. That's the framework you follow because it's what makes genuine human connections possible. But a narcissist doesn't see it that way. Their entire approach is different. They are not interested in fairness or balance, they seek power. A narcissist's main objective in any interaction is to maintain control, gain attention, and secure validation on their own terms. If that requires twisting reality, then so be it. If it involves making you doubt your own memories, they won't hesitate. If it means chipping away at your confidence so that you become more submissive and easier to control, that's exactly what they will do, and they won't feel an ounce of guilt. This is what makes them dangerous. Some people mistakenly believe that if they show enough patience, kindness, or carefully explain things, the narcissist will eventually understand and change, but that is a fantasy. A narcissist does not change through reasoning, discussions, or moral arguments. They only respond to consequences. If you fail to accept this basic reality, you will find yourself trapped in an endless cycle of frustration, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. So what does recognizing their behavior actually look like? First, it means focusing on patterns rather than words. Narcissists are skilled at saying exactly what you want to hear. They will make promises, pretend to feel regret, and even act like the victim just to keep you hooked. But the real question is, what do their actions consistently show? If there's a repeated pattern of dishonesty, manipulation, or disrespect, that's the real truth, no matter what they say. Second, you must understand that narcissists use specific psychological tactics to stay in control. One of the most dangerous is gaslighting, making you question your own reality. They will deny things they've said, even when you have proof. They will rewrite history, slowly shifting the story until you find yourself apologizing for something you didn't even do. The more you argue with them, the more power they gain, because by defending yourself, you are playing into their hands. You are reacting to them, which means they are setting the terms of the conversation. Another strategy they use is intermittent reinforcement, alternating between kindness and cruelty in unpredictable cycles. This is highly addictive because it mimics the psychology behind addiction. If someone is always cruel, you would eventually leave. But if they occasionally mix in moments of warmth, your mind keeps chasing that reward, hoping that if you just behave the right way, you'll get more of the good and less of the bad. This creates a toxic dependency, where you remain in the relationship not because it's fulfilling, but because you're desperate to get back to those rare moments of affection, which were never real in the first place. They were just another way to manipulate you. Then there's projection. A narcissist will accuse you of the very things they are guilty of. If they are dishonest, they will call you a liar. If they are emotionally unstable, they will claim you are the irrational one. This serves two purposes. It shifts attention away from their own flaws and keeps you so busy defending yourself that you don't even notice what they're doing. Recognizing these strategies isn't about becoming paranoid. It's about gaining clarity. It's about stripping away the illusion and seeing reality for what it is. Because once you see the game for what it is, you stop playing. And the moment you stop playing, the narcissist loses their power over you. If you want to break free from their control, stop being manipulated, and stop feeling emotionally drained, the first step is simple. See the narcissist for who they truly are, not who you wish they were. Reality, no matter how harsh, will always serve you better than a comforting illusion. One of the most self-sabotaging mistakes you can make when dealing with a narcissist is seeking their approval. And this doesn't just mean openly trying to impress them. It includes the subtle, unconscious ways you adjust your behavior to avoid their criticism, to gain a small bit of their acknowledgement, or to finally, just once, be treated with the respect you deserve. It's an easy trap to fall into because, as humans, we are wired for fairness. When we invest time and effort into a relationship, whether personal, professional, or family, We expect at some level that our efforts will be appreciated. That if we just explain ourselves well enough, if we just prove our loyalty, our patience, our sincerity, then surely at some point the narcissist will recognize it and change. But that moment never comes, because narcissists do not operate within the rules of fairness. They see your effort not as a reason to respect you, but as proof that they control you. Every time you alter yourself to avoid their disapproval, you reinforce their dominance. Every time you wait for their validation, you give them power over your self-worth. And if you believe there is some perfect combination of words or actions that will finally make them see you for who you are wasting your time. Because for them, the goalposts are always moving. The moment you think you've done enough, they will create a new standard, one they never intend for you to reach. It's not about you. That is the key realization. Their inability to respect you is not a reflection of your worth, but a result of their own deep insecurity. A narcissist's sense of self is fragile. It is built on an illusion of superiority that they must constantly protect. They cannot allow themselves to be wrong because admitting fault would shatter that illusion. They cannot truly appreciate others because that would mean giving up control. So they move through life manipulating, taking, and diminishing others because that's the only way they can maintain their inflated self-image. Once you truly understand this, the right response becomes clear. You must detach emotionally, mentally, and when possible, physically. And that starts with one crucial step. You must stop seeking their approval in any form. This doesn't mean being rude or cruel. It simply means refusing to participate in their psychological game. So how does this actually work in real life? It means no longer explaining yourself to them. A narcissist thrives on argument because arguing suggests that their opinion matters. The moment you start defending yourself, you've already lost. Because now the conversation is centered around their view of you instead of your own reality. Stop explaining yourself to someone who is only looking for ammunition. If they twist your words, let them. If they misrepresent your intentions, so be it. Their opinion of you is not your responsibility to fix. It also means letting go of the need for closure. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn. We all crave resolution. We all want that moment where the narcissist finally admits they were wrong, apologizes, and gives us the justice we deserve. But that moment is never coming. The more you chase it, the longer you remain trapped in their web. The only closure you will ever get is the one you give yourself. The decision to walk away, to stop engaging, to accept that their recognition is not required for your self-worth to remain intact. And most importantly, it means redefining your own sense of validation. If you've spent years or even decades shaping your identity around the approval of someone who was never capable of valuing you in the first place, then it's time to take your power back. Your worth does not exist at the mercy of someone else's recognition. It is something you claim for yourself, and the moment you do, the narcissist loses the one thing that made them powerful over you in the first place. Because in the end, the most revolutionary act you can take is simply this: choosing yourself. Defying a narcissist is straightforward. Stop needing them to see you. Instead, focus on seeing yourself. One of the biggest and riskiest mistakes you can make when dealing with a narcissist is assuming that playing fairly will protect you. That if you stay reasonable, act justly, and continue giving them the benefit of the doubt, they will eventually return the favor. But this assumption is built on a false premise: that the narcissist values fairness, that they respond to reason, that they are even engaging in the same kind of interaction you are. They are not. A narcissist operates within an entirely different psychological framework. Most people, when faced with a disagreement, whether with a friend, a partner, or a colleague, assume that there is a shared version of reality, that if both parties communicate honestly, the truth will surface and some resolution can be reached. But a narcissist has no interest in resolution. Their focus is on control. This is why you must stop believing that being the bigger person, being endlessly patient and understanding, will lead to change. It won't. To a narcissist, your willingness to engage, to keep explaining, to keep justifying yourself, and to keep hoping for a rational response is not seen as strength. It's viewed as weakness. It signals to them that they still control your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions. It tells them that you are still playing their game, even if you don't realize it. So what's the alternative? You stop reacting the way they expect. You stop feeding the emotional fuel they rely on. It's crucial to understand this. Narcissists are not self-sustaining. They do not generate their own sense of stability, identity, or worth. They extract it from others. This is why they provoke, why they manipulate, and why they create unnecessary conflict. It's all an attempt to keep you engaged, because engagement equals power. To disarm a narcissist, you must strip them of that power, and this begins with mastering something both simple and incredibly challenging: emotional detachment. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions entirely. That's neither healthy nor sustainable. What it does mean is developing the ability to remain unaffected by their provocations. It means recognizing that their attempts to guilt you, to bait you, to drag you into another cycle of arguments and justifications are merely tactics to keep you under their control. This is where the concept of gray rocking becomes useful. It's a psychological technique where you make yourself as uninteresting, unemotional, and disengaged as possible. Narcissists feed off reactions, whether anger, frustration, sadness, or even affection, because reactions indicate they still hold influence over you. But if you stop responding in the dramatic way they crave, they lose their leverage. They get bored. They move on. That being said, this is not easy. It's not easy to remain composed while someone is deliberately trying to provoke you. It's not easy to hear outrageous accusations and choose not to defend yourself. It's not easy to watch them twist reality and tarnish your name and simply say, believe what you want. But it is necessary, because every time you engage, every time you fight back, every time you try to prove your worth to someone who has no interest in the truth, you fuel the very dynamic that is draining you. This is a form of psychological discipline. It is the ability to say, I do not need this person's validation. I do not need to correct their false narrative. I do not need to win their approval or prove my worth in their eyes. And once you reach this level of detachment, you become untouchable. Because a narcissist cannot control what they cannot provoke. In the end, the most powerful response to a narcissist is not anger, not even confrontation, it's indifference. Once they realize they can no longer draw you into their chaos, they lose interest. And that's when you truly reclaim your freedom. One of the biggest traps people fall into when dealing with narcissists is engaging in their never-ending cycle of conflict. You might think that if you can just make them see your perspective, if you can finally prove your point, if you can get them to acknowledge their behavior, everything will change. But that's an illusion. A narcissist does not argue to resolve anything. They argue to dominate. Their goal isn't truth, mutual understanding, or even proving themselves right in any rational way. Their goal is to keep you entangled, emotionally invested, and reactive. Because as long as you're reacting, you're still in the game. And as long as you're in the game, they still have power over you. Consider how this plays out. You confront them about something disrespectful or dishonest they did. A reasonable person, even if they don't fully agree, would at least attempt to understand your perspective and respond in good faith. But a narcissist, they deflect, they shift the blame, they bring up something irrelevant from 6 months ago, they twist your words, they accuse you of being the problem. And before you know it, the original issue is no longer the focus. You're now defending yourself, and that's where they win. The moment you start defending yourself, the conversation is no longer about their behavior, it's about proving your innocence. They've flipped the script, leaving you mentally and emotionally drained, while they remain in control. So how do you stop this cycle? You disengage. You stop justifying yourself. You stop explaining. You stop trying to win a debate that was never designed to be fair. This does not mean allowing them to mistreat you. It does not mean tolerating abuse or staying silent in the face of wrongdoing. It means refusing to participate in their rigged game. It means setting boundaries that are non-negotiable. A narcissist thrives on emotional chaos and will do everything possible to keep you off balance. If you say, I won't tolerate being spoken to like that, they will push harder to see if you mean it. If you say, I won't engage in this kind of argument, they will provoke you until you break your own rule. Because if they can get you to react, they win. They've shown that your boundaries are just words. Your job is to make sure they aren't. If you say you're leaving the conversation, leave. If you say you won't tolerate disrespect, don't. If you say you won't explain yourself, stop explaining. Because the moment a narcissist realizes that their usual tactics no longer work on you, they start losing interest. You are no longer the easy target they thought you were. But here's the hard part. Standing firm in your boundaries means enduring discomfort. It means resisting the urge to correct their lies. It means resisting the temptation to defend yourself when they twist reality. It means accepting that they will never see the truth because they don't want to. And that's okay. Your peace, dignity, and self-respect do not depend on their recognition. They depend on your ability to walk away from pointless battles, to refuse to be baited, to prioritize your well-being over the illusion of winning an argument. Because in the end, the true victory isn't proving a narcissist wrong. It's proving to yourself that you no longer need their validation at all. The hard truth about dealing with a narcissist is that they will never respect your boundaries unless you enforce them. Enforcing boundaries doesn't mean repeatedly explaining them, hoping the narcissist will finally understand. It doesn't mean making empty threats. It doesn't mean expecting them to suddenly develop self-awareness and treat you with the respect you deserve. It means taking action. It means consequences. Not everyone will always agree with you, but they will respect the fact that you have a right to set limits. A narcissist, however, views your boundaries as a challenge, an obstacle to overcome, a test to see how much they can get away with. They will keep pushing until they find your breaking point. This is why half measures never work. If you set a boundary but fail to enforce it, all you've done is show the narcissist that your words carry no weight, that if they push hard enough, apply enough pressure, or create enough guilt, you'll eventually give in. And once they realize that your limits are negotiable, they will exploit that knowledge over and over again. So what does true enforcement look like? It means being ready to walk away from conversations that cross the line. It means stepping away from toxic situations, even if it feels uncomfortable. It means understanding that you don't have to argue, negotiate, or justify yourself repeatedly. You simply have to act. This is where many people struggle because taking action is hard, it's uncomfortable, it comes with a cost. Enforcing boundaries means accepting that the narcissist will react negatively, and they absolutely will. They will call you selfish, cruel, and unreasonable. They will play the victim. They will lash out because they are not interested in respecting your limits. Their only goal is making sure you feel guilty enough to drop them. This is when you have to be strong enough to withstand the discomfort of doing what's necessary. You must accept that once you start enforcing boundaries, the narcissist will escalate their behavior. If they used to manipulate you subtly, they might begin attacking you directly. If they relied on guilt tripping, they may exaggerate their victimhood. If they previously used charm, they might turn to outright aggression. This is known as an extinction burst, a last desperate attempt to regain control when they realize their usual tactics are no longer effective. And this is the moment where most people break. Because in that moment, the pressure is overwhelming, the accusations, the guilt, the manipulation, it all intensifies. If you're not prepared for it, you might give in. You might start thinking, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I should just explain one more time. And the second you do, the narcissist knows they still have influence over you, They'll back off temporarily, pretending everything is fine, but soon enough, those things will put the hell out of you. The only way to break free from this cycle is to stop giving them any reason to believe they can change your mind. You have to show them, not through words, but through consistent action, that your boundaries are real, non-negotiable, and that violating them has consequences. That may mean cutting contact. It may mean refusing to respond to provocations, whatever the situation requires. The key is consistency. Because in the end, boundaries are not about controlling the narcissist's actions. You will never control them. They will always do whatever serves their ego, their control, and their power. Boundaries are about controlling your own choices, about deciding what you will and will not tolerate, about removing yourself from situations that drain you. They are about prioritizing your own well-being over the illusion that you can change them. And when you finally do that, when you stand firm in your boundaries with unwavering resolve, something incredible happens. The narcissist loses their grip on you. Their influence fades. You start to reclaim something they were never meant to have in the first place. Your autonomy, your dignity, your peace. And that is a victory worth fighting for. One of the hardest truths you will ever face when dealing with a narcissist is understanding that they will never give you closure. The apology you've been waiting for, the moment where they finally acknowledge the harm they caused you, it's never going to come. And the longer you wait for it, the longer you remain caught in their psychological trap. Because here's the reality. Narcissists do not reflect on their actions the way emotionally healthy people do. They don't lie awake at night wrestling with guilt, wondering how to make amends. They don't replay the past and think, maybe I was wrong. That's simply not how their mind works. Their priority is not truth. Their priority is control. If maintaining that control requires rewriting history, turning you into the villain, or distorting reality so thoroughly that even you begin to question yourself, then that's exactly what they'll do. And if you're not careful, you can spend years, decades even, trying to extract something from them that they are fundamentally incapable of giving. You'll keep hoping that if you just find the right words, if you just prove your point in the perfect way, they will finally understand. But they won't. Not because the truth isn't obvious, but because admitting it would mean surrendering the control they have over you. So you have a choice. You can continue chasing an apology that will never come. You can keep replaying conversations in your head, imagining different outcomes, trying to make sense of something that was never meant to make sense. Or you can accept that your healing does not depend on them. You can decide that closure is something you give yourself. That's not easy, because as human beings, we crave resolution. Our minds seek order and understanding. When someone betrays us, when they cause deep wounds, we want acknowledgement, we want justice, we want a clean ending to the story. But life is not always that neat. And when you're dealing with a narcissist, the ending you hope for, the resolution where they finally take accountability, is nothing more than a mirage. So what do you do instead? You take back your story. You stop waiting for them to set you free, and you set yourself free. That means accepting that some people will never truly grasp the harm they've done to you and choosing to move forward regardless. That means letting go of the belief that their validation is necessary for your healing. It's not. It never was. And that is where real strength comes from. Because as long as you're waiting for them to acknowledge the truth, they still have power over you. As long as you hope for that moment of clarity from them, they still control your emotions. But the second you stop seeking their validation, the moment you decide that their opinion, their version of events, and their refusal to acknowledge reality are all irrelevant, that is the moment you win. That is the moment they lose their hold on you. And here's the paradox. The less you need closure from them, the more power you have over your own life. The moment you stop explaining, stop defending, stop waiting, you become untouchable. Because a narcissist's greatest weapon is their ability to manipulate your need for resolution. Take that away from them, and they have nothing left to control. Healing from narcissistic abuse is not about getting them to understand what they did. It's about understanding it yourself. It's about realizing that their refusal to take responsibility is not a reflection of your worth, but of their own brokenness. It's about recognizing that closure does not come from them. It comes from you making the decision that you no longer need their permission to move on. And when you finally do that, when you truly let go, something incredible happens. The weight they placed on you starts to lift. The anger, the confusion, the self-doubt, they begin to fade, not because what they did was okay, but because you have chosen not to let it define you any longer. In the end, the greatest victory against a narcissist is not proving them wrong, it's not forcing an apology, it's not even exposing them, it's thriving in spite of them. It's living a life so full, so independent, so completely unshackled from their influence that they become nothing more than a distant memory, a lesson learned, a chapter closed, and that right there is true closure. Thank you.